Hi, thanks for joining me for this module of hot buttons. So we are still in winter, and winter is that cold and frigid and isolated time where we are full of anxiety or frustration or self-doubt or just angst, right? Winter is a dark and stormy time, and when we have storms swirling around us, we really have to understand where they came from, right? Because we're never going to be able to navigate our way out of it until we know what precipitated it in the first place. Because chances are, as an entrepreneur, you are gonna do it again. You are gonna do whatever it was to set off this storm over and over again. So when that happens, we need to think about what was that precipitating moment? What was the thing that started it? And in my world, when I'm going through the 5 seasons, I talk about this moment as being a hot button. So for me, a hot button is really any kind of emotionally charged, really highly reactive experience where I just come out of myself and dive in headfirst to something. Something happens around me and I just jump right in, right? If it wasn't a hot button, I'd be like, that's interesting. If someone over there said something about me and I wasn't really interested in them or what they had to say, or I didn't feel like they even knew what they were talking about, it would be like, okay, to each his own. It wouldn't bother me. But when other things happen in my business, I'm like, all fired up and ready to go. That is because a hot button was pushed. So here on this slide, we look at a couple of hot button items and really just some things that are hot buttons for most of us are the things that push us into winter at any point in our life, personally and professionally. But some of the top hot buttons are making mistakes, which really highlights that we feel inadequate. Not knowing an answer. The hot button is that we feel stupid, right? We feel like a fraud, which goes to the bigger feeling of imposter syndrome. If we misunderstand something, it goes back to not knowing the answer, right? It makes us not feel intelligent. We don't feel capable of being able to do the thing, to answer the question, to solve the problem, to help the client, or whatever that is. If we get critical feedback, sometimes that's a hot button because we use it as evidence that we suck, right? We use it as evidence that, see, I knew I wasn't very good at something. If we forget a key deliverable, it really is us feeling unreliable, right? And so we just think, oh, of course I let them down because that's just who I am. I am no good at this. Or oftentimes, hot buttons are triggered because we see someone else succeed, right? So not only do we have comparisonitis where we're like, oh my gosh, look at her, look at him, look at them. It really is also, we don't have it. So if we're looking at their fantastic laptop lifestyle and everything is looking amazing, yeah, that shows us we don't have that. And so that could very well be a hot button. So when we're thinking about the hot buttons that we have, I want you to pick one to begin with. And so take one hot button. It could be one of the ones from the list that we just read, or it could be one that you just know about. And I want you to kind of think, where did it come from? Where was an earlier iteration of this being something that pushed you, right? Maybe pushed you into that reptilian brain space where you just reacted, where it really wasn't about thinking, it wasn't about feeling, it was just like this fiery emotion of coming right at the problem to either shut it down or run away or just deer in the headlights. You don't know what to do, right? In that instance, what hot button got you to that point, to that very, reactive state? And then I want you to think, was there an earlier time that happened? And can you remember an even earlier instance? How far back can you go of that feeling? If your hot button is feeling inadequate, that you can't do anything right, and every mistake you make is evidence that you can't do anything right, I'm pretty confident that you could trace that all the way back to like preschool, if not earlier, to your earliest memories, right? If you're walking with a bowl of cereal as a young child and you trip and you spill cereal and your parent yells at you, you know, you're such a slob, you can't do anything right. That was the start of this. And how interesting that decades later, that same feeling has planted itself as a hot button for you. So when you make a mistake with a client or with a prospective client, with, you know, somebody in a networking event, you say the wrong thing or you misspeak in some way, you are flooded, you are red, you are hot, you are sweaty, you are embarrassed, you need to run away, or you start hiding, or you change the subject and you become super disruptive and you know, kind of get really loud and a little bit assertive and, you know, just trying to get the attention off of your mistake because your mistake says that you aren't good enough, right? That you're inadequate. And so take your hot buttons and pull them back through your life, right? All the way to the very beginnings of where you think those kind of happened, where those seeds were planted. And I can bet that that winter storm has followed you personally and professionally most of your life, right? When we have hot buttons, say for example, you know, making a mistake, feeling inadequate. So if you had a family that celebrated mistakes, right? That when you spilled something, they're like, not a problem, let's get a cloth, let's clean it up, no big deal. And then you were riding your bike and you fell in a ditch. Oh, don't worry about it, it's just a scraped knee, we'll clean it up, don't worry. Oh, the bike is bent, okay, we'll try to bend it back or we'll take it to the repair shop, it's fine. If that was your experience, most likely your hot button is not gonna be making mistakes, because you were not raised in an environment where making mistakes was considered a bad thing. It was just part of being alive, right? But if you were in a family and making mistakes became a very, very touchy space and it was punitive when you made a mistake, you were punished in harsh and, you know, really detrimental ways for making mistakes, yeah, that could absolutely be a hot button in your professional life. So take a few minutes and think back about some of your hot buttons. How early can you get them? And what do you need to do to kind of heal the hurt? Because if you felt like you were inadequate as a child because you spilt your cereal and you made mistakes, perhaps you need to go back and love that child a little bit and say, it's okay, we all make mistakes. Errors happen, right? And I'm confident in your business, you are not making the kind of mistakes that a $1 billion technology company sending a satellite up into space is making, right? You are a small entrepreneur, a solo entrepreneur with a small team perhaps. Your mistakes will be on scale to your business. But nonetheless, if you feel like making mistakes is a hot button for you, you are going to have to go back and love that little child and say mistakes are okay. And get yourself to a point today that says mistakes are okay, they happen. They happen and it's okay. And what makes them okay is that you take the learning, right? So it's not just you make a mistake, you ignore it, you push it under a rug and then you never speak about it again. No, you say what happened? What could I have changed? What did I need to do differently? What system or process would have helped me serve my clients better or not make that mistake, right? Maybe it's a scheduling problem and you need to have your calendar be a little bit more accurate because you missed a deadline because you wrote a deadline on a scrap piece of paper and you lost it, right? Maybe it's as simple as just having a system in your business, right? Maybe it's a bigger solution, but either way, mistakes don't define us, right? The learning that we glean from our mistakes is what empowers us to move on. So understanding your hot buttons, whatever they can be, is really a place of power, because once you understand your hot button, you're able to decide, how do I need to do this differently so that it doesn't paralyze me from moving forward because I'm so afraid of reacting that way again. We don't want you to do that. We want you to be in your business brilliance. So I hope this was helpful. Please continue to work on your worksheet about your hot buttons. And when you're ready, pick another one. We are not unifocused, we are multidimensional people and we have many hot buttons. So when they pop up for you, have a little book, maybe have a business brilliance blueprint book besides the book that you have, and start taking some notes. Ooh, that was a hot button. I didn't realize that. Let me write it down because I need to do some work on that. I didn't realize that was a hot button until I just jumped out of my skin and, reacted from that reptilian brain space. I felt like a little kid again, or I felt like I was being shamed in front of the class, being sent into the corner. Okay, that is absolutely a hot button. Let's break that down. So please take notes of how you're feeling as you go through your business, as you go through your life, and understand where some of these seeds were planted. And then dig them out. Look at them, hold them up, and decide, do I still need this? Does this still serve me? Because chances are those hot buttons are not serving you in your business, and they're not serving you in your life. So I wish you all the best on this journey, and I will see you in the next module. Bye.